In 2021, more than $30 billion worth of ransoms were unnecessarily paid out by small businesses. These businesses didn't adequately protect their critical data against ransomware, allowing PCs, servers, and account software such as QuickBooks to be vulnerable. Secure your business today with StorageGuardian.com. To get an exclusive offer for Theology of Business podcast listeners, head over to StorageGuardian.com to get started for free for 60 days with their Veeam self-provisioning portal. Storage Guardian will also provide expert recommendations on how to protect your company from these types of attacks. Don't be a victim to attackers. Head over to StorageGuardian.com today. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Theology of Business podcast. I'm your host, Darren Shear, and this is the show for marketplace Christians seeking to explore and apply God's will for business. On this episode, we're joined by Joshua Brown, a former drug dealer, pothead, and high school dropout who was radically changed by God's love and his people. Joshua is now pastor of Brown's Pressure Washing, which is one of the largest pressure washing companies in Nashville, Tennessee. After serving inside church organizations for over 20 years as youth pastor, children's pastor, family pastor, he is now the pressure washing pastor. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on your show today.
Yes, sir. So when did you first realize God wanted to be involved in your work in business?
Well, that's a great question. And it was probably more of an evolution of thought, because when I started the business, it was me just trying to figure out how to provide for my family if I was no longer in ministry. I had already been a part of the vocational position for about 16, 17 years when I started thinking about opening a side business or a side hustle, as some people have said. And I had no idea, for whatever reason, and we might need to unpack it today, but the idea that I could be a pastor and not in vocational ministry was a struggle, but I never stopped being who I was, where I was. And so it wouldn't matter if I was, inside the church or meeting somebody on job site. I was the same person wherever I was. And so I didn't change identities from one location to another. It actually probably wasn't until the last, this is sad, probably 6 months to a year, that I really understood that God had put a calling on me to pastor pastors through the idea of marketplace ministry. And so it's so sad to say it and confess it, but it took me a while to get there. And so I would say within the last six months to a year, it's been an evolution of me really diving in and asking myself the question, am I marketing pressure washing pastor, or is God calling me to be the pressure washing pastor? And I think after prayer, heart search, reading a bunch of books, I'm like, dude, you can totally be a shepherd inside of the marketplace. Where did I get this idea to begin with? And so that's what kind of brings us here today, is me processing that question.
And how did you earn this title, the pressure washing pastor?
Okay, so that is a really good question. It's not something I coined myself, but we had grown as a pressure washing business to about $1 million in Nashville a few years ago in 2020, yearly. And I had a call from some investors that said, hey, can we invest inside your company? And I said, I don't really need an investor. I need a salesman, because I'm not a salesman. I show up on site, love people, and see what we can do to take care of their homes. And after that meeting, they said, hey, would you be interested in joining our network? It's the largest gathering of 7-figure pressure washing companies in the country. It's called the BBB. Now, when I say BBB, most people think Better Business Bureau, but it wasn't the Better Business Bureau. It was 3 different Bs. And I'm going to say it with you. Don't judge me. I didn't create the network. I just joined it, okay? It was bourbon, BS, and business. I don't drink bourbon. I hope I don't BS. And I'm a Nazarene from past, so, definitely not. But business was something I was interested in. So I joined that network. And as I started showing up the other people in the room started saying, "Hey, over there is the pressure washing pastor." And at first I was like, why are they calling me the pressure washing pastor? I didn't get it, but I never changed who I was where I was. And so whether I'm in the church or outside the church, and when I say church, I'm referring to the four walls. I was me wherever I was. And so the people inside this business group who was completely the three B's, like as far as what they enjoy, and I love these guys, still a part of the group, they named it. And then as I started thinking about what to do next, I said, why don't you lean towards that term? And then God started doing the work of, can you be a pastor and own a pressure washing business? So it wasn't a quick decision. It was something that they had mentioned to me.
So what does pastoring look like for you day to day in Brown's Pressure Washing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it almost you have to unpack what is the role of a pastor, right? Yes. And so when you unroll what is the role of a pastor? Is it to preach? Is it to teach? Is it the hospital visit? Is it to do weddings and ceremonies? Sure. Yes, inside of vocational ministry. But, we haven't unpacked my story or shared anything about the root of this conversation. And if I can entertain you for a moment, is it okay if
Of course.
Do we have enough? Okay. And so real quickly on my testimony, my mom adopted from Kalamazoo, Michigan into Nashville, Tennessee, where she was adopted in. Her dad, at the age of 13, would go off to prison for the things he was doing to her. Her mom was addicted to pain medication and alcohol, toxic personality, home, environment. By the time she's 15, she gets pregnant with me from a dude named Frankie. Frankie had said he was 21, she was 15, said he couldn't get pregnant, but voila, I showed up. And when he found out that I was in the picture, he said, I'll pay for his abortion, but I won't be in his life. And so my mom first agreed, and then she just ended up saying, I can't kill this thing that's within me. And so when you start with your starting point, you realize that my mom was so brave. If you think about a 15-year-old that has no context of a family or a home, I had even asked her, why'd you choose to give me life? She was in the story that there was no hope. And her answer was this: I had never loved anything. And I had determined if I could love anything, I was going to love you.
Wow.
I'm sorry to say it like that, but the heartbeat behind the who and the what has to be known. And so my story began homeless on the streets, soup kitchens, cars, projects, different dudes that my mom would live with. And we grew up all over the place. By the time I'm 17, I'm a drug dealer, pothead, high school dropout. And at 19, I get in a car wreck, and I believe God said, Joshua, you're wasting your life. It was a Tupac Shakur song I was listening to. Is there heaven for a G? And I knew enough theology that there was no heaven for a person like me. And I showed up at the last night of a revival service right outside Winston-Salem. And I felt God say, I love you. And when that hit, I believed it, and I responded by faith. I went forward, gave the pastor my pot, and gave God my heart, and I started trying to figure out, what does it look like to be a godly dude? Now what I'm about to say is kind of the answer of what we're referring to. When I got saved, I believed to do whatever the institution was directing me to do. I showed up, and I wanted to know what it looked like to stop looking at pornography, what it meant to be a godly man. How can I be a disciple? I didn't know, or the word was disciple, but I ended up in Bible school. There I became, I got my GED, got a pastoral ministry degree, Christian counseling, and then served inside the church. When you ask the question, what does pastoring look like all day? It didn't look like what I was doing 80% of the time when I was inside a vocation. I feel like for me, okay, so if your audience is listening and so forth like that, I'm not suggesting what pastoring looks like for everybody. I'm just sharing what pastor looks like for me. And I'm going a long ways around to answer this question. But the root of it is this. In order to be a pastor, you have to be in a relationship with the great shepherd. And so the role for me, what it looks like is starting off every morning on my knees and just thanking God for giving me life, spending time with his Holy Spirit, because you can't give what you ain't got, but you can give what you do got. And if I'm going to be a shepherd or a pastor or a disciple maker, I have to make sure that I'm spending time with God so I can then give to others and then invite others to do what I'm doing. And so I feel like the role of a pastor for me is to model that which I want others to follow. And so the thing of what behind me, it says pressure washing pastor. There's three things I've got listed here. It's create jobs. I feel like one of the roles of a pastor is to provide for people. And so that's why I'm landing on if we're supposed to provide, if a shepherd is supposed to lead his sheep to greener pastures, I've got to make sure that my guys and girls are able to provide for their families. The next thing that I've got is make disciples. You make disciples by being a disciple and then have intentional ways to get there, whether it's leadership development, whether it's books, prayer, reading. But ultimately, you reproduce who you are and you teach what you know. And so ultimately, discipleship or pastoring is me imaging the very thing that I'm inviting others to. And then the next one is serve the city. And so inside of our city, we wash widows' homes in Nashville for free. And we try to remind them that they're not forgotten, that they're loved. And so long story short, the way that I unpack pastoring is providing, modeling, and serving the community around us. And that's kind of what I lean on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. To give us a bit of a clearer understanding as well, could you also maybe give us a story, just a firsthand real world example of what that one of your favorite memories in pastoring out in the workplace where you just walked away from that thinking that's pastoring?
Yeah, and there's a bunch of examples, but it's really when you invite people to be a part of your team, and so we don't have employees, we have team members, watching them duplicate and become a disciple is the stories. And so I can share stories where we've had opportunity to pray for folks, and I know that's ambiguous to say that. But one example would be last year, one of our guys who's been here about 5 years at that time, he's washing a house and he ends up going up to the home and saying, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, I noticed that your ramp leading up to your front door needs to be cleaned. And would you like for me to clean that while I'm here today?" And she said, "No, my husband passed away a few years ago. We won't be needing that anymore." And so he ends up starting to clean the house. And as he's cleaning it, he hears something say, "Give it to her for free." And he ends up cleaning the house, cleans that little ramp, goes up to the door, and the lady ends up bringing out the exact change, like in dollar bills and coins.
Wow.
And hands it over to Josiah. And Josiah says, "No, today it's on us."
Wow.
And I know that sounds like such a small act, but for our guys to be cognizant and aware and listening to God and obedient, then he calls me up 3 days later and says, "Joshua, I got an idea. It's a baby chicken. Don't step on it." And I said, "Okay." He said, "What if we tried to wash every widow's house in Nashville for free?" And I immediately stepped on his chicken and squashed it. I said, "We'll go out of business if we try to do that for free for every person." But I remember Andy Stanley had shared inside of some leadership training, "Do for one what you wish you could do for everybody." And I said, we can't do it for everybody, I don't think, but we can do it for one. And so watching him mature, watching our team members mature, praying over folks. And now Washing Widows Homes in Nashville is what is one of the identities we've stepped into and becoming that. Praying for people has become a normal standard. Inviting different team members has become a staple. Leadership development and watching people grow. Those are all different pieces of the puzzle. And I could share different folks, but that would be an example is watching folks. I'll share one more if I don't bore you too much. And it might be a good example for everyone to do inventory on. Is Josiah called me up 4 years ago, and he's on site, and a trailer broke in half, water spilling out, soap everywhere, and the trailer is literally bent in half on the customer's driveway. And when he calls me, he's like, "Oh, Josh is going to lose it!" Like, so he calls me, invites me over, and this is in his. I wish he was here so he could share the story, but he has mentioned it, how it changed the way he views life. Is when I got out of the car, I had the biggest smile on my face. I put my hand on the shoulder and said, like, "We're going to get through this. This is not that big of a deal." And so when you have buried people, when you've gone through great tragedies, and then you help the folks that you're surrounded with understand that the things that we think that are big just really ain't that big, gives us a perspective on life, on how to get through life when difficult times happen. And so those are a couple of examples.
Wow. Oh man. That's so powerful. Oh, and I love that story about the widows and how that model came to be, and that's really baked into your identity as a company now, right? Is taking care of the widows.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, thank you.
And so now you're replicating this. This is too good to just keep in Nashville. So you're encouraging other pastors to, from what I was hearing you say on another interview, there's a fairly low barrier to entry into starting a pressure washing company, which was something that was attractive to you when you first got started. What is the model, and what are you doing for pastors now?
So this is what I'm doing. I don't believe there's just one way to do things. And so the entry point for us is first a conversation to make sure that we're helping the right people. And so the first thing that we do is someone would just schedule an interview with me, and I share my story and they share their story. And then we work from there based on their geographical location and what their personal goals are. And so for me, if I have the right person, we will work through what financing, what needs to happen to make their ministry in the marketplace a reality. But basically, the idea is this: is in my head, I thought in order to be a pastor, you had to be in vocational ministry. I really didn't know that you could be a minister in the marketplace. And so once I got this through my head, I started thinking, God, what do you want me to do with the rest of my life? We've, on scale to do 2 million this year. Don't want to live for profits. I want to live for purpose. And he said, do for others what I've done for you. I feel very strongly that God is inviting me to invite other pastors, bivocational folks who've left ministry and don't know what their next steps are, to have a conversation with me and see whether or not we can launch a pressure washing company inside of their city. And they get our branding, they get our coaching, and they get our blueprint of how we grow. And I've been very intentional in creating a way to make that happen. The way I got into it was I Googled top 5 businesses to start with $5,000 or less. And I found that you can take pictures of cats, you can clean chimneys, and then you can also start a pressure washing company. And so I started my company super cheap. I had a Honda Odyssey van. I put some stickers on the window. I took a converted boat trailer and threw a pressure washer, chemical tank, some reels on it. And I just started washing homes and loving people. And it started very small, but it's amazing how if you love people, you build relationships and work hard, you can grow a business. And so we're inviting to grow the largest brand nationwide with pressure washing pastors. And so ultimately, we're trying to grow the Chick-fil-A of of pressure washing.
Yeah. And so they pay a licensing fee and then you help get them set up. And do you encourage them to have the church own the pressure washing company as an asset, or does the pastor own it and it's more
Yeah,
of
so
like his tent making, or how does that work?
yeah, it's a good question. Basically, we looked at all the different models to help this initiative take place and become a reality. And licensing made the most sense. And so it's 100% whoever is the who that's going to get it started. And so for some folks, so I've now been able to launch a few and have conversations going on. It doesn't look the same for everybody. And so for some folks, they are no longer in ministry and they have a little bit of money and they want to start up the business for themselves. And they are going to be the people that do the sales and do the cleaning. For others, you might have a financial investor, someone that's good with leadership development and casting vision. And then they have a couple of kids or sons that they're interested in them doing the operations and them doing the sales. And so there's not a one way, one size fits all. It's me hearing your story, your stage of life, and then figuring out, are you the right who that I want to be in relationship with? And at the end of the day, I could have taken this to a franchising, could have done it many different ways, but I've determined that I'm going to find the right people and then invest in them to help them own their own pressure washing company in their city.
Gotcha. And so
Does
when
that
you
answer
say
your question?
invest, like it's not just them paying a licensing fee, but when you say you're investing, are you investing money? Are you investing the
Yeah,
know-how? Like,
so
what does that look like?
Yeah, so the cost for entry is so low. Generally, the franchising licensing agreement is somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000 to get a territory, to get a branding, and to get the manuals. For us, it is a fraction of that for your territory. You got to have skin in the game. We've learned that if you don't have skin in the game, chances are you're not going to be playing the game. And so we need folks that are really committed. And then you purchase whatever equipment and marketing you need to purchase for your company, and you own everything. And so the coaching and the branding is all things that we've learned over the years. So we have weekly calls, we have life planning, because we've learned that many pastors haven't learned how to set up a healthy work-life balance. And you have to know what to say no to, what to say yes to. And so we've thought through sales coaching, operation coaching. We handle the phones. And so we've created a way to save a new location a ton of overhead where they don't have to hire somebody to answer the phones Monday through Saturday. We cover all that inside of the royalties, and the royalties don't even cover to be able to pay the admins until that company hits $300,000-$400,000 a year in order to make sense. And so our goal is to help someone get to that $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 spot where they are then able to grow the business and expand and so forth like that.
Yeah. So why pastors? Why not just go after anyone who shares your values?
Hey, thank you for asking that question. And really, it's because I've learned that for me to work with someone that has had a work of grace inside of their lives, it are the right who's. And we're not trying to grow profits as much as we're trying to grow a missional community or ministers in the marketplace. And so I'm hoping I weed people out that are there to just make money, because, you can make money, but I don't want to invest my time, my energy, my resources, our brands in folks that aren't there to really create jobs, make disciples, and serve the city. And so I've got to make sure that, and I'm thinking that most pastors have been changed by the gospel, and they just may not have the tools or the awareness or the ability of know what step is next. And so it's kind of like coming alongside of them and then helping them go. Also, church planting networks are things that we're working with to create a way of saying, hey, if you're wanting to plant a church, why don't, and a lot of the church planters, they've already gone through assessments and they're the right people, they're the right who's, they're planting in a community. And then we can come alongside of them and teach them how to make money inside the marketplace as they create jobs, make disciples, and serve the city in their community. And so, quick answer, I talk a lot. Quick answer is the reason we want pastors is because we want stories of life change as a result of the work that we do. We're not trying to just focus on profits. We're trying to grow the mission and be disciples inside the marketplace.
Got it. Well, pressurewashingpastor.com is the website. Anything you want to say about how people can get involved?
Yeah, I appreciate that. If anyone is listening and they're wondering about their next steps, I'd love to sit down to chat with you. Even if you don't end up going with Pressure Washing Pastors, I'm happy to give direction or guidance because sometimes you're in a spot and you just don't know what direction is next. It's helpful to have somebody who can listen and can love and can encourage you in your next steps. And so feel free to visit us on our website and schedule a call with us.
Awesome. Again, pressurewashingpastor.com is the website. And you've been listening to Joshua Brown, the Pressure Washing Pastor. Joshua, thank you so much for sharing your vision, your passion, your expertise with us today. We're all better for it.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. You can share your feedback and get more information to help you partner with God in business and disciple your company, your industry, and your community at theologyofbusiness.com. The Theology of Business podcast is sponsored by Highbridge Books and Media, a media agency specializing in publishing and promoting the world-changing ideas of inspiring thought leaders through book publishing, website development, publicity, email marketing, social media management, podcast management, and video-based course publishing. Take the next step to share your message with the world by contacting us at highbridgemedia.com. Thanks for listening and keep partnering with God in your business.